So thank you so much. It's already a privilege to be here and speak something about Africa. So before starting my speech, I would like to recognize those who have taken the initiative to give us this chance so that we could introduce each other and share our views. So as it's already said, my presentation topic is PathDependency or departure, a reflection on the new Pan-Africanism. Well, when we are thinking about PathDependency, first something that comes to our mind is path. So what kind of paths we have been following in history? And should we make some kind of departure? And what kind? If we have to, maybe Pan-Africanism is the way out, and some sort of recrafting, rethinking Pan-Africanism by the current generation might work. So in my presentation, maybe you will have a glimpse of past dependence theory, but not in detail, because here in the room there are people from different walks of life and different background. And why we need past departure? Is there a political philosophy that could help us understand our trajectory of development, trajectory of history? This is the question that I would like to raise and maybe give some reflection. But it is not a serious one, to be honest. Like, it's a free-size one. A couple of weeks ago, I was in South Africa. I presented about African integration. So if there is anybody who needs some serious presentation, just you could have that in slide or the video on the YouTube. I don't know, actually, if they have already uploaded it. So what exactly path dependency is? What is the theory, the philosophical idea behind it as a political theory? Well, it is about history of, how the past decisions, how the past affects the present. Well, I'm not a person to stick in the past and talk about, colonialism, slavery. Yes, it has robbed our identity, our thoughts, many things, but we cannot stick in the past. There should be somebody who is connecting the past, the present, and the future. So when I'm talking about departure, okay, until now we have been going to this street. So at some point, we may deflect to a certain direction, maybe U-turn also, we could also consider. Anyway, I will have some thoughts on that, but the central idea is that, the central idea behind the past dependency theory is that the past decisions affect the present, the past history affect the present, the past journey has some implication on the current development and status quo of ourselves or our continent. So as an Africa, or the states in Africa have been passing through in different systems. Well, we have passed through slavery as an institution. there was some division of society, class of society, slave and slave owner, colonizer and colony. And we have also passed through feudalism. Those who own the land or the landlords are always extracting some rent from the tenant. And we are also experiencing totalitarianism in different states. So the question is, should we accept such kind of trajectory to affect our present and future? If not, we have to question. The path-dependence theory should be questioned, and maybe a sort of deflection or departure we need. So, well, this tribalism is still there. I mean, the traditional governance system, just more than 2,000 tribes are in Africa. There are languages. We appreciate the language, as Professor Daniel has been saying. But at the same time, there should be some connection between us. If the languages are like a wall, which are banning us from communication, maybe it has to be questioned. And at the same time, as the new generation, we need not only, wall for protection, but also we need a bridge between society, not only Africans with Africans, but also Africans with the rest of the world. But the relation should be not extractive one. It has to be a fair one. So after we are questioning this path-dependency theory, where should we go? Should we go to capitalism in the literal sense? Well, it has pros and cons, as every system, but maybe we have to have our own kind of thing, political theory. Maybe, well, previously I wrote an article about inclusive development. This social justice issue is my topic of my PhD research. I published 2 articles. One is about inclusive development and this global society that you have been introducing. And the other one is the social market economy model. How could we use in Africa from our idiosyncrasies, like from our point of view, from the local thought point of view, not simply taking it as a lesson or just transferring from somewhere to somewhere. No, that kind of development model doesn't work out. Because we have a lot of experiences that is, failure history, and if we are wise enough, we don't repeat the same mistakes. So we have to have our own kind of political theory, political system, so that we could have a fair transaction between us and at the same time between the rest of the world. So one of the resolutions for recrafting our own thought is Pan-Africanism, but in the new version. Well, Pan-Africanism is the solidarity between Africans and friends of Africans, of course, and those from African descent. Well, in history, Africa was not decolonized by the effort of the local people. There were Africans who were in the diaspora, and they fought day and night in very determination. And at the same time, there were people from the West who were showing solidarity for Africans. Therefore, the effort was not only from Africans, But the idea behind Pan-Africanism is like a sort of connection between African spirits, regardless of where Africans are. I will talk about different types of Pan-Africanism later on, but we should really understand what Pan-Africanism is all about. I mean, the Eurocentric Pan-Africanism is more about racism, to be honest. But the one that we understand from Africa idiosyncrasies, or from from Afrocentric point of view, is more about connection between Africans in the local, in Africa and in the diaspora. And not only that, it is a political philosophy, by the way. Some other people say it is like a slogan. It is beyond that. It is a political philosophy because it shows that how the Africans have been reacting to the extractive institutions that came from abroad and within, of course. So it is more of revolutionary socialism. And there is patriotism in it. Patriots are important to embed the Pan-Africanism thought to the African culture. And it has been somehow radical because you cannot change the present status quo unless you fight. So, well, from Karl Marx's point of view, well, such kind of radical things will bring you to a certain point. But we are in the 21st century and the fight should be in a different form. It's not the physical one. Therefore, what kind of fight should we fight is in the present. So it has a nationalism connotation in it, but in the new version, what should be exactly our focus? So I'm gonna be talking about that. So before going to the deeper sense of the new Pan-Africanism, we have to understand what exactly Pan-Africanism is and what type of Pan-Africanism we have. The first one is Sub-Saharan Pan-Africanism. It is most of the time called Black Pan-Africanism because Sub-Saharan African countries are more black because of, the climate that affects our DNA to produce melanin, and it has nothing to do with intelligence. It is the culture that it is adaptation mechanism. But I'm not I'm not a researcher in this area and I cannot say a lot. So the second one is the Trans-Saharan Pan-Africanism. It includes the northern African countries, including Arabs and Maghrebs. So this Trans-Saharan Pan-Africanism is Pan-Africanism of all people in the continent, within. The third one is Transatlantic Pan-Africanism. It connects or it shows the lineage between the Africans within the continent and without, especially to the Caribbeans and Americas. So this one actually, this transatlantic is more like connection between the local Africans with the Americans. But when it comes to the Western, this may surprise you actually. The Western Hemispheric Pan-Africanism, it includes Black Indians and the surrounding. I don't know if they are feeling like that way, to be honest. And the last one is the global Pan-Africanism. I mean, whether they are located in Europe or elsewhere in America or Asia, whatever, and including the local, so it is a connection in between. When it comes to the trajectory of Pan-Africanism, there are some historical junctures. Some people believe that Pan-Africanism started in 1999 when African Union was established. No. Some other people even believe that Pan-Africanism started in 1963, the time Organization for African Union was started. That's also wrong. Some others believe that Pan-Africanism started in 1900, during the time the first Pan-African conference was conducted in London. So, like people like Professor Daniel Egbo, he's very connected professor to his community, to Africa. There were also people like the founders of Pan-Africanism, actually, in the first generation. In 1900, there was conference in London, and after that, up to 1945, there were 5 important conferences globally. And by then, the movement was, the spirit was totally different. It was very energetic, radical, and at the same time, they were totally against colonialism. And that is why in 1960s, as you all know, most of the African countries were decolonized. So, saying all this, Pan-Africanism concept is not a new one. It's not 100 years or 500 years. It goes back to the birth of Christ, like until 332, the type of Pan-Africanism was resistance Pan-Africanism, and 332 was actually the time that African countries were opposing or fighting Alexander the Great, or the Alexander the Fourth of Greece. By then, he tried to conquer dozen Kamats. Kamat was Egypt. So by then, the African countries showed solidarity against this power, and it is taken as a historical juncture. The second one is 711. It was a counterattack by Gibar Tariq. He was the Mauritanian warlord, and he conquered Spain, to be honest. So he had 10,000 horsemen, and well, he was Muslim, and he tried to conquer, or just to give some aggressive or some aggression against Spain. The third one is from 15th century to the 19th century. It is taken as a revolutionary Pan-Africanism, because by then there was slavery. So to defend and to make slavery abolitionist movement, there was revolution, and the type of Pan-Africanism by then was revolutionary Pan-Africanism. And afterwards, it is called scientific Pan-Africanism, and it was a kind of movement using knowledge, not force, not power, but saying no, organizing Africans themselves And it helped to decolonize Africa. The new version of Pan-Africanism, I will try to talk about it later. But before that, we should know that we are from the richest continent of the world. It's not something that comes out of the blue, but it is truth. We have natural resources. We have useful population, and these days educated people who are capable of adapting technology, innovating technology, and attracting capital from elsewhere. So we are capable and we deserve to be self-sufficient. Unfortunately, as you all know, resources, as you all see here, they are cursed in Africa. They are not a bless. Because if there is a precious natural resource in the surrounding, there is always a conflict. In the Western Africa, they call it like blood diamond. Blood diamond. There are also other nicknames for different resources, because if there is a resource, the FDIs finance foreign direct investors. They finance conflicts. And due to this destabilization, the local governments cannot concentrate on harnessing something good out of these natural resources. So saying this, we have to also understand the relationship that we have. If we are really talking about the new Pan-Africanism, we have to understand the relationship that we have with the rest of the world. What kind of relationship did we have 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and now? Is there a difference? Like 100 years ago, we had triangular trade. I don't know how many of you understand this. Triangular trade is a trade between Africa, Europe, and Americas, especially the Caribbeans. The Africans, as you see in the green color, the Africans were sending the slaves, and the Caribbeans produce natural resources, agricultural inputs, like sugar cane. As you know, they are known for these large estate farms, and they were producing this sugar and they send it to the Europe. They export natural resource, these raw materials to Europe, especially during the Industrial Revolution. And the Europe was sending manufactured goods to Africa. So my question is, what about now? What are we sending? What are we importing? What is the transaction? Is it fair enough? I would ask, are we still sending migrants? By then they were sold. It was not for free. By now, we pay to arrive here. We pay. And only those who are privileged achieve it. Those who have money or some knowledge. We come here for education. That's really the nice one, to be honest, to travel for education, because it has an enlightenment, knowledge transfer, remittance, many other things. But if you ask me myself, well, I like my travel from my personal point of view. But from Africa point of view, is not Africa losing? That's the question that we have to ask. And how is it, to be honest, we have more more intriguing statistics. This map is actually taken from the Curtis Foundation. It is organized by 10 independent research organizations from Europe, from America, but this Curtis Foundation was from America, and there are also local research organizations from Africa. And they produced 2 reports in 2014 and 2017. So the 2014 report shows that Africa is not a recipient of capital. Africa is sending capital. In the other words, Africa is donating. We are donors. Maybe it may surprise you. How much we donate, they have different calculations, but other people still claim this is only a very small amount. We lose in trillions, they say. But according to the calculation, Africa is donating net 58 billion every year. What's coming? 134. What is out? 192 billion in that particular year. In 2017, actually they calculated to be 41 billion. Anyways, I don't know how many of we accept, whether we Africans or non-African friends in the house, that Africa is donating. Given all this, Africa is, as you all know, it is like 11% of the government budget comes from other countries as a donation, as a aid. And even from organization point of view, African Union receives 74% of its budget from the rest of the world, especially from the European Union. So the question is, how independent can African Union be? I quote something here. It says, "He who pays the piper calls the tune." So we are dancing in the rhythms that we are given from somewhere because somebody is donating us. When somebody is giving us the opportunity to learn education somewhere else, at the same time we are supposed to learn the language. That's good. It's a bridge. It's a bridge. I believe in bridge, not in the wall between societies. So it's good to learn other language, but other people also should learn our language so that the learning process could be mutual and at the same time not in the sense of one is like donating and the other one is recipient. And the other fascinating data that I received is that like Africa is receiving $1 aid, and for that $1 aid, Africa loses $24 in return. So for me, such kind of data may tell us something to wake up. To wake up, not to be against other people, but to be fair enough and to claim our rights and do the responsibilities, of course. Now, these dogs, they are cute, yeah? So, the poor and rich dogs, like a couple of years ago, I was invited to speak in Hochschule in Frankfurt, and then during my presentation, a dog was, barking outside. And a woman said, "The dog is barking like a poor." Oh God. She is absolutely right for me. It is like a political philosophy for me. If you are in captivity, if you feel that you are treated unjustly, if your stomach is empty, if you are excommunicated, or if there is some sort of prejudice against you, then you oppose. You cannot calm down. Conflicts are natural. This is the natural human behavior. Therefore, if there are some problems somewhere, actually Immanuel Kant, actually I'm his fan, but yesterday I heard something that I don't want to hear it. Like he was dividing people in their intelligence, and he said, somebody quoted it, he said that the white people are the superior, such kind of things that I don't appreciate. But I appreciate from his quote, he says that poverty somewhere is a threat for prosperity anywhere. So the thing is, if there are poor dogs in the captivity, in the cage, if they are not relaxed, if they are not fed, they don't feel secured. They cry, they bark. Yeah, so maybe we may understand why a lot of turmoils, why political instabilities most of the time come from the South, the global South. We may understand why that is happening. That's a human behavior. So in order to have a peaceful, inclusive kind of society, global society, then we need some sort of justice for the dogs, for the black dogs and the white dogs. But it is not always easy, to be honest, to advocate such kind of justice. It is not from external point of view. It's not from the Eurocentric point of view. Even from African point of view, if you are advocating for justice, you are the enemy. You are treated as the enemy. Not from people from somewhere else, within your society, within those who are supporting the government or some other system, then they oppose you. That's why it takes me to the allegory of the cave, the Plato's, philosophy, that if there are people in the cave and who don't know what's going on outside the cave, and by chance one guy goes out and see what's going on, and he see the animals, the sun, the plants, everything natural. Then he come to explain to the people who are in the cave, and finally they kill him because it's against their thought. Let me be somehow faster. So when we are talking about Pan-Africanism or African situation in any way, we touch not only Africans, we touch the rest of the world also. Well, not to make other people insecure, but because other people should also understand. In the piano, as you can see, when you are touching the black keys, you hear some voice. When you are touching the white keys, you see some other voice. But when you are touching together, you hear a melody. So we have to have, we have to be brutally honest and question the existing scenario. So we have to have a bridge, not a wall. the wall between society should be demolished, but the bridge should be constructed in a constructive way, so that our future could be made better. Well, Professor Daniel Egba talked about education system, so I don't want to repeat it again. And I'm not, to be honest, a fan of do's and don't do's, do this, don't do's. But for today, I'm giving like a free-size speech. So as an African, if there are people who are not bothering to lecture Africans, so why don't I say also do's and don't do's? So what's good for Africans? The new Pan-Africanism is about, please underline this one. Today I would like to make this point. The new Pan-Africanism, what it makes different from the previous one is that there is an economy element within. A person who is not economically empowered cannot be independent, cannot be decolonized, cannot be a free person. He will be enslaved. Therefore, we need some sort of economic empowerment. Prof, this is the last one actually, so if the time is going, I'm sorry. Let me speak like 3 minutes and I will stop. So talking about the new Pan-Africanism, well, we have to rethink the existing institutions. We have to even rethink capitalism. We have to ask democracy also. Well, in Africa, as you know, there are pseudo-democracies. There are elections, but they are not democratic enough. People have the freedom to elect whoever they would like to represent. So we need Afrocracy. We have to administer ourselves. We have to be free enough as a society, and at the same time, we have to be somehow connected with the rest of the world in principle. But in practice, we have to know what it works for us. So Professor Patrice Lumumba, he advocates for Afrocracy. It looks like weird, but the inner meaning is inspiring. We have to have our own governance system. So we have to also revise our curriculum so that the curriculum, as the Ghanaian friend was putting his point, we have to revise our curriculum. So we have also like demographic dividend. The young generation is coming, the educated one, by the way, not only the illiterate one. There are educated people that can recraft Africa, and our development trajectory, our development path could be fair enough. So we shouldn't, it's not a nuclear science. If we are using our natural resources, like the sun, water, soil, and the brain that we have, we can make a difference and we could be independent. Well, we are interdependent in the global society, but at the same time, we can have our own thing. So from the don'ts side, I will only read them. This tribalism is not the modern one. We have to maybe recraft it again. The foreign aid, dates, dependency is also making the Africans dependent on the rest of the world. So we have to think about it. The secessional movements in different countries because of this tribalic mentality, there are movements to have their own states. Like I was in South Africa, and after I returned back home here, I heard that white people would like to have different country in South Africa. So the brain drain, this triangle trade, expecting some change without is not our stuff, and we have to have our own things. And let me stop here. Thank you so much for your attendance. Thank you.